I gave my son $225,000, my life savings. Then he and his wife screamed, "There's no room for old people," and threw me out. I left without a word. By morning, 32 missed calls. That was only the beginning. I always thought growing old would come with peace. Quiet mornings, good books, maybe a garden to tend. But peace, it turns out, is something you have to fight for. I was 67 when I gave up everything familiar and moved to Seattle, Washington. The decision wasn't easy, but I told myself it was for family, for Nathan, my son, and Amber, his wife. They had just bought a beautiful townhouse, sleek and modern, not far from downtown. Amber was pregnant with their first child. They said they wanted me close. Said they'd take care of me. I sold my antique book collection to help them get that house. $225,000. A lifetime of collecting, of first editions and rare bindings, gone in one bank transfer. I didn't hesitate. I saw it as my final gift, my way of securing Nathan's future, and hopefully mine too. Amber hugged me like she meant it. Nathan promised, "You'll never need to worry again, Mom. This is your home now too." When I moved in, it all seemed warm and hopeful. My room was small, really a converted storage space, but I didn't mind. It had a single bed, a narrow dresser, and just enough space for my quilt and the photo of my late husband, Charles. That picture stayed on the nightstand, watching over me like he always used to. At first, Amber was sweet. She brought me herbal teas, asked me about my library work, even showed me how to use their smart thermostat. Nathan worked from home most days, always tapping away on his laptop, headphones in. We had dinners together that first week. Pasta, roast chicken, even takeout one night. I told myself this was it, my place, my people, my last chapter. But good things don't fade overnight. They rot slowly from the inside. By the second week, I started noticing things. The dinners stopped. Amber began filming long live streams for her followers, using ring lights and talking loudly about mom content and sponsored nursery tours. She always set up in the living room, right outside my door. I'd stay inside for hours so I wouldn't ruin the vibe. Once I coughed during a live stream and heard her sigh into the mic. "Ignore the background noise. Family, you know how it is." Nathan became distant. Not cruel, just unavailable. I'd ask him if we could go out for groceries together, and he'd say he was slammed with meetings. When I brought up the heater not working downstairs, he nodded but didn't fix it. "Electric bills are killing us," he mumbled one night, and that was that. I started wearing my coat indoors, layering blankets over my legs in the evenings. Then came the rules. At first, small things. No running the dishwasher after 9 p.m. No personal guests. As if I had a social calendar. No using the upstairs bathroom after Amber went to bed. I adjusted. I always adjusted. That's what mothers do, right? But nothing stung more than what I heard late one evening. I'd just come back from a short walk and was about to make tea when I paused by the kitchen. "She's not going to leave unless we make her," Nathan was saying. His voice was low, sharp in a way I didn't recognize. Amber replied, "The baby's coming. We need that space. Push harder. She's too comfortable." I stood frozen by the fridge, fingers trembling. I didn't go in. I didn't let them know I heard. I just turned around, went back to my little room, and sat there, staring at the wall. I thought about the books I sold. I thought about the day Nathan was born and the way he used to draw me pictures of us holding hands. I thought about everything I gave up so they could have a life I never asked to be a part of. That night I made a decision. They thought I had nothing left, but what they didn't know was, I'd added my name to the house title before sending the money. Legally, I owned 51% of the property. I hadn't wanted to, but the attorney handling the paperwork advised it. Just in case, he'd said. I'd never told Nathan. I'd trusted he'd never give me a reason to. I packed slowly. My clothes, the photo of Charles, a few books I couldn't part with, and the red folder with all the legal documents. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. I had already reserved a room at a nearby motel weeks earlier. Just a feeling in my bones that told me I might need it. The motel was small and quiet. The kind of place nobody notices. I checked in using my ID, paid for the week in cash, and unpacked what little I had. I laid my quilt across the stiff mattress, set Charles's photo on the bedside table, and sat down with a deep breath. Not angry. Not even sad. Just done. 2 days later, I got a call. Unknown number. A man introduced himself as Travis, a foreclosure officer from a local lender. Nathan, he explained, had taken out a $112,000 cryptocurrency-backed business loan, using the house as collateral. The business had failed. Payments had been missed. Foreclosure proceedings were starting. My heart didn't race. I asked questions calmly. Travis told me I could stop it by paying the loan, or release my share and let the house go. I told him I'd call him back, then printed the documents at the motel front desk, sat on the bed with my blue ink pen and signed. When Travis called back, I confirmed everything. "Thank you, Ms. Rivers," he said. I said nothing, just hung up. The next morning, I turned off my phone and walked to the nearest diner. I ordered black coffee and toast and sat quietly, watching the rain trace patterns on the window. I thought about what Nathan and Amber would see when they checked the mailbox. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. The day after I signed the release, I stayed in bed longer than usual. I didn't feel triumphant, and I wasn't celebrating. But there was a stillness in me I hadn't felt in years, like something inside had finally gone quiet. I made a cup of tea using the motel's old kettle, sat by the window, and listened to the sounds outside: traffic, birds, distant footsteps. All of it somehow more comforting than anything I'd heard in that townhouse. I didn't check my phone until late afternoon. 32 missed calls. Mostly from Nathan, a few from Amber. No voicemails, just desperate attempts to reach me. I didn't answer. I already knew what they were about. I imagined them standing at the front door, confused, maybe scared, holding the foreclosure notice in trembling hands. Part of me thought they deserved more warning, a softer goodbye. But then I remembered what they said in the kitchen. "She's too comfortable." That was all the warning I ever needed. The texts started pouring in the next day. "Amber, did you cancel something with the mortgage? We got a weird letter. Please call." Nathan, "There's a notice on the door." "Mom, seriously, what did you do?" Amber, "Linda from next door says it's a scam, but the bank's not answering. Please just tell us what's happening." I said nothing. I kept myself busy. Walked to the corner store for crackers and peanut butter. Read an old paperback novel I'd packed last minute. I bought a small notebook and began writing things down, not to tell a story, but to remind myself that I had won. That I hadn't disappeared just because someone else wanted me gone. 2 nights later, someone knocked on my motel door. I hesitated, then looked through the peephole. Nathan. I almost didn't recognize him. His face was pale, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept. Against my better judgment, I opened the door an inch. "Mom," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I gave him 5 minutes. He sat at the small round table near the window while I stayed by the bed, arms folded. "We're trying to fix this," he began. "But the bank said you signed off on the house. It's gone." He looked up at me with those same eyes he had as a little boy, full of confusion and a touch of fear. But I wasn't looking at the boy anymore. I was looking at a man who had traded his mother for comfort. "I messed up," he continued. "I should have told you about the loan. I just thought the business would take off." I said nothing. Just let him talk. "Amber's not taking it well. The baby's coming. We're scrambling. We need time." That's when he slid a manila folder across the table. "This could help. Just something to allow me to manage negotiations, move some money, stabilize things." I opened it and read. It was a partial power of attorney, buried in legal jargon. It would give him limited control, but access to my retirement account was listed clearly in the fine print. I looked at him. "You think I'm stupid?" I asked softly. His mouth opened, then closed. "No. I just thought you still cared." I stood and pointed at the door. "Get out." He didn't fight. He just nodded and walked out. I watched him go through the peephole until he was gone, then sat back down with shaking hands. Not from fear, just rage that had finally cooled into something sharp. The next morning, I called a woman named Renee. She worked at the city housing board and had given me her card weeks earlier during a community event I'd gone to with my church group. I told her I was ready to move on, not just from the house but from all of it. She invited me to her office. We sat down over lukewarm coffee, and I told her everything. How I sold my collection, how I was discarded, how they tried to manipulate me again after losing everything. She didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me. She just nodded and said, "Let's get you a place where nobody gets to tell you you're taking up space." 2 days later, I had a folder in my hands. Inside were listings for senior housing units near the coast. One caught my eye. A 2-bedroom condo overlooking Puget Sound, 2nd floor, quiet area, porch with ocean access. It was within my budget, and more than that, it looked like freedom. While I was preparing to move, the final act of their performance hit social media. Amber had posted a GoFundMe titled, "Evicted by My Own Mother." The photo was of her standing in front of a U-Haul, tear-streaked, holding their newborn son. Micah, they had named him. My grandson. A baby I hadn't even known had been born. In the photo, she looked heartbroken. But what caught my eye wasn't her face. It was the $900 posh baby designer diaper bag, slung over her shoulder. The iPhone 15 Pro in her hand. The polished nails. The brand new stroller. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was hurt. I'd already felt that. This was different. This was insult pretending to be pain. A lie wrapped in tears. I did not respond. I did not comment. Instead, I printed the screenshots. I filed for a restraining order and included everything: texts, documents, the attempted power of attorney, even the diaper bag's retail price. The court clerk looked at me and said, "You're not the first. You won't be the last." The order came through in 2 days. I made 5 copies, one for myself, one for Renee, one for the motel, one for the local police department, and one I mailed directly to their last known address. I didn't write a note. I just attached a sticky that read, "You wanted legal. You got it." Then I closed the motel room door, locked it, and sat in the stillness. I was almost done. Almost free. And something told me they weren't finished yet. The night after I sent them the restraining order, I didn't sleep. Not from fear. I was beyond fear by then. It was something heavier, like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing the fall is behind you, not ahead. I lay on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how far I'd come. From the kitchen whisper I never forgot to that first quiet night alone with my own thoughts, I'd started to feel like myself again. But peace has a way of stirring the water before it settles. 3 days after the restraining order landed at their door, there was another knock. I peeked through the peephole. It was Amber. I should have ignored it. Every sensible part of me said so. But curiosity has teeth, and sometimes I forget how deeply people can bite. I opened the door a crack. Amber looked like a shell of the woman she pretended to be online. Makeup smeared, hair thrown into a messy knot. In her arms was a baby, wrapped tightly in a soft blue blanket, no more than a few weeks old. "I'm not here to fight," she said quickly. We don't know what to do anymore. Josh is falling apart. We lost the rental. The credit check failed. Please, just 5 minutes." I don't know what part of me gave in. Maybe it was the baby. Maybe I still wanted to believe there was some version of Amber that was sincere, buried under all that performance. I opened the door and let her in. She sat carefully on the edge of the motel bed, rocking the baby gently. "His name's Micah," she said softly. "Your grandson." I didn't respond. I watched her eyes, her hands, the subtle movements she made. She glanced around the room, trying not to wrinkle her nose at the modest furniture. "You still keep it cold in here," she murmured, almost smiling. "What do you want, Amber?" I asked flatly. She blinked. "We really screwed up. I said things I didn't mean. We were scared, tired. Everything just spiraled. Nathan didn't mean to take advantage of you." I said nothing. She adjusted the blanket around Micah and sighed. "I'm not asking for money. Just guidance. A little help. For him." And that's when I noticed it, the tiny glint from the bag's side pocket. The designer posh baby diaper bag again. Only this time, something was poking out. A phone screen turned slightly half-hidden. "Recording. You came here to get something," I said, standing up slowly. "What?" Her voice cracked. "Your phone. In the side pocket. You're recording this." She froze. We needed proof. In case you twisted things. So people would believe us." I laughed. Not loudly. Not bitterly. Just a dry, exhausted sound. "You brought a baby," I said, "to bait me into saying something cruel. You came to play victim one more time." She stood suddenly. "You don't understand." "No," I said, pointing at the door. "Get out of my room. Now. And take the gift shop baby bag with you." She hesitated, her eyes wide and wet. "She's your grandchild," Amber whispered, clearly desperate. "No," I said, my voice calm. "He's your son. Raise him better than you treat people." I stepped forward and she backed out the door. I didn't slam it. I just closed it with finality, locked it, and leaned against it until I couldn't hear the baby crying anymore. That cry stayed with me longer than I expected. The next morning I took action. I walked straight to the courthouse, documents in hand. I filed an updated motion to enforce the restraining order, added a note about the recording attempt, and listed it under harassment and manipulation. The clerk didn't even blink. "You'd be surprised how common this is," she said quietly. I mailed another copy of the updated order. No sticky note this time. No message. They knew what it meant. That evening I got an email. This time from a local Seattle magazine that had caught wind of the GoFundMe fiasco and was doing a piece on housing betrayal, inheritance scams, and online manipulation. They asked if I wanted to go on record. I didn't even hesitate. I gathered my documents, the house deed, the screenshots, the receipts from the antique book sale, the text messages, and the photo of Amber holding her expensive bag in front of a U-Haul, and sent it all. In the subject line I wrote, "Since they want to talk, let's talk." The piece ran the following Sunday with my name, my words, and my story on full display. It wasn't sensational, just true. The headline read, "Inheritance or Invasion? One Mother's Story of Quiet Revenge." The article was shared more than I expected. Church friends, former co-workers, even my old neighbor from Ohio emailed me. Most of them had no idea what I'd gone through. Many of them had stories of their own. Turns out betrayal comes in all shapes. Mine just wore a smile and called me Mom. And then something unexpected happened. Nathan emailed me. No subject line. Just one sentence. I read the article. "I won't contact you again. I'm sorry you felt like you had no choice. Not sorry for what he did. Not sorry for abandoning me. Just sorry I felt cornered." I archived it. No reply. Then, almost as if it was choreographed, the motel manager knocked on my door a few days later and handed me a stack of forwarded mail. Among them, a letter from Renee, the housing coordinator. She'd found me a place. A second-floor condo in a quiet Puget Sound complex for retirees and veterans. 2 bedrooms. Sunlight in the mornings. Affordable on my pension. I stared at the photo of the balcony view, the ocean barely visible in the background, and felt my lungs expand in a way they hadn't in years. I circled it with red pen and wrote one word underneath. Yes. That night I updated my will. I removed Nathan completely. Everything, what was left of my savings, my few personal valuables, even the rights to the book collection's legacy, would now go to a public library restoration fund, a domestic violence shelter, and a girls' STEM scholarship. The lawyer handling the update asked if I wanted to include a backup heir. "No," I said. "I've made my choices. And this time, I'm not changing them for anyone." Later, I sat in that same motel room, bare walls, stale carpet, and whispered to the dark. "I wasn't your villain. I was your lesson." And this time, there was no part of me that wanted to be forgiven. The morning I left the motel for the last time, I woke up before sunrise. I sat on the edge of the bed, the red folder in my lap, and listened to the quiet. No arguments from upstairs, no crying baby next door, no one sighing because I asked where the baking sheets were. Just silence. A kind of silence that wraps around your bones and tells you, you're safe. I took a long shower, dressed slowly, and made one last motel coffee. Then I packed. It didn't take much time. My suitcase, the photo of Charles, my quilt, a few books, and that folder, my armor. I double-checked every drawer, even though I knew they were empty. It was more about leaving nothing behind. Not even a trace. The condo was smaller than I imagined, but brighter. Sunlight spilled into the living room, as if it had been waiting for someone to notice. There were 2 small bedrooms, a kitchenette, and a balcony that overlooked a sliver of Puget Sound. I could hear the waves at night. That was enough. I unpacked quietly that afternoon. First the quilt, then Charles's photo, and then the books, stacked neatly beside the bed. I made tea, opened the balcony door, and sat down. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like a guest in someone else's life. 3 days after I moved in, a letter came. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately, Nathan's. It wasn't a long letter. Just 4 lines. "I know I can't undo what I did. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know I'm trying." I named him Micah Elaine Rivers. I read it once, then again. The pen had pressed too hard on Elaine, like he'd hesitated before writing it. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just folded the letter and placed it in the same drawer that held the now-void house deed and my updated will. I thought I was done. But of course they weren't. That weekend, I was returning from the corner bookstore when I saw something that stopped me cold. A video. Sent by a friend from my old church group. Amber, standing outside what looked like a church shelter, holding Micah and speaking to a camera. Her eyes were red, hair disheveled, and the caption beneath read, "Abandoned by family, starting from nothing." I didn't even have to watch it to know what it said. The comments were a mess. Strangers offering sympathy, sharing donation links, suggesting housing programs. And right in the middle of it, one sentence from someone I hadn't heard from in years. "If that's her mother-in-law, I'd love to hear her side." I didn't respond. Not publicly. Not to Amber. Not even to Nathan. But I wasn't about to let her rewrite the truth again. The next day, I returned to the courthouse and asked to speak with the officer who had filed my original restraining order. I brought a printed copy of Amber's video. I explained what it was, how she had a pattern of weaponizing public sympathy, and how the restraining order specifically included limits on digital harassment and defamation. Officer Jensen reviewed it carefully, nodding as I spoke. "You've got a case," he said. "We'll escalate it. You've done everything right." That evening, I wrote an email to the Seattle Magazine editor who had published my story. I didn't ask for another article. I just sent the video and attached a note. This is how people erase others. Slowly. Publicly. But not this time. Then I turned off my phone. Permanently. I bought a new number the following day, shared it only with the housing office, my lawyer, and Renee. I was done being a side character in someone else's performance. A week passed in peace. I signed up for a watercolor class held in the community rec room every Tuesday and Thursday. The instructor's name was Walter. He was 73, wore plaid suspenders, and told terrible jokes that made everyone groan and laugh. On the second day, he looked at my painting, an abstract ocean wave, and said, "You paint like someone who's survived something." I smiled. "That's because I have." The rest of the class nodded quietly. No one asked for details. That was the beauty of being around people who had their own pasts to carry. One afternoon, while unpacking a final box, I came across a small ceramic bowl Charles had made me in a pottery class during our second year of marriage. It had a crooked lip and a small crack down one side, but I never threw it away. I placed it by the window and dropped a smooth seashell inside, one I'd picked up from a beach walk the week before. The woman who sold it to me had said, "Choose the one that calls to you." I picked a soft blue one with silver streaks. "This one's for people who've just let go of something heavy," she'd told me. That night, I stared at the shell for a long time. Letting go isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's just the decision not to answer, not to engage, not to fight the same tired battle again. And then, just when I believed it might really be over, I got one last message. A new email from an unfamiliar address. But the tone was unmistakable. 4 short words. "We lost everything. Congrats." I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. No reply. No reaction. Nothing left to say. Because here's what they never understood. I never wanted revenge. Not really. I wanted respect. A place at the table. A family that didn't measure my value by how much I gave or how small I stayed. They started this story by saying there was no space for me. They ended it by proving I never needed their space at all. The next morning, I poured a fresh cup of coffee, opened my balcony door, and sat in the sun. The waves whispered softly in the distance. There were no knocks on the door, no texts waiting to be read, no battles to anticipate. Just quiet. Just peace. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I belonged to myself.